This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Executive Suite Squared by ATG, offering private and shared office space with 24/7 secured access, 3 state-of-the-art conference rooms, shared lounge and cafe area, receptionist, printing center, and fiber optic internet access with Wi-Fi throughout. Conveniently located just south of 8094 at the Kennedy Avenue exit at 2901 Carlson Drive in Hammond, Indiana. For information on how you can become a member, go to executivesuites2.com or call 219-844-2901. Executive Suite Squared, home to the Bill and Callie Show.
The Bill and Kelly Show is recorded at Studio A at Executive Suite Squared in beautiful Hammond, Indiana. Now, here's Bill and Kelly. Hello and welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show. Today we have a returning guest who's been on our show a number of times. One of our favorites, hailing all the way from Madison, Wisconsin, the beautiful Madison, Wisconsin.
Absolutely, it is gorgeous up there.
David Benjamin, who's an author and a publisher, and he's came to talk to us about his new book, Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked. So David, welcome again.
It's great to be here. I appreciate you bringing me back and putting up with me.
We love putting up with you.
Yeah, it's putting up with us.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
I like Callie anyway.
Yeah, that's.
Thank you.
Yeah, some people think that the Bill and should be just taken off, including me, and just whatever remains.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay. So what do we come here to talk about besides changing the name of our show and banning me forever?
Well, as you know, if your viewers haven't heard me already, I'm an author, I'm a writer, and I started my own publishing imprint last year. It's called Last Kid Books. Now, the curious thing about that was that it's named after The Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked, which was published in 2002 by Random House, and they held the rights to it. So when I started my imprint, a lot of readers that I talked to at book events before COVID-19 made book events impossible, the people would ask, the book has a kind of a following in Wisconsin and the Midwest especially, and so people would come up to me and say, "Well, is the Last Kid Picked one of your titles?" And I said, "No, it belongs to Random House." So after about a year of dealing with those questions, I got in touch with Random House, which wasn't easy because nobody was in the office in New York. They were all working from home. So I had to finally, I made like 3 or 4 different overtures to different people. They don't have a department for authors who want to get their book rights back. Well, they have a rights department, but that's basically for selling rights and for doing, it's kind of like a record rights, you can you quote things and so forth. But they didn't have a particular person to deal with. But I finally got a hold of this very nice young woman who connected me with the people who decide those things. And I got a letter sometime in June, I think, that I could have my rights back. So I got the rights back. I was already busy re-editing the book. It's amazing when you let a book sit for 17 years. When you go back through it, you see how many mistakes you've made and see how much clumsy writing you dumped into it in the first place. So I was able to make a whole lot of changes that people who read the book before probably wouldn't notice, but which made me feel a lot better as a writer. One of the problems was that I had the cover art was gone. Random House had lost the cover art. This was a photo I took in Tomah, Wisconsin, when I was 11 years old, with my Brownie 127 camera, of my brother, my cousin Tom, and another kid from the neighborhood named Donnie Friedel. And they were all, 10 years old, dressed like kids dressed in those days. And it was a wonderfully evocative picture, but it's been lost. I have copies. I have pictures. I have copies on the covers of the Random House book, but I don't have the actual print and the negative that I had. But it was a Brownie 127. It was really, really fuzzy negative, so it probably wasn't good anyway. So I contracted with my regular illustrator, who's done a lot of my book covers, Greg Holfeld, who lives in Australia, and he came up with a new cover, which is quite nice. It's all been put into production, and it's going to be going to the printers probably today or tomorrow. Wow. And I'll have an actual book in about 3 weeks.
Okay. Wow. Great. We're looking forward to that.
But I haven't told you a thing about the book.
No. Oh, well, we're going
to process conversation.
Now, the book.
Yeah. Well, the motivation for the book goes back a long, long time, obviously. But when I was running a weekly newspaper in Massachusetts, I was dealing constantly with the youth hockey people and the Little League people and the Pee Wee football people and the junior football people and so forth. And one of the things that you notice nowadays is that kids are not going out into parks and backyards and sandlots and playing a lot of freelance sports. They're all organized, they're all scheduled, and they're all coached. And this, the motivation for writing this book was there was this really kind of interesting slice of history between the era of child labor, which ran through the Depression and even up into World War II, and the onset, the invasion of adult supervision into kids' sports. And that started happening in the late 50s, early 60s. Little League was always around, and one of the things that I point out in my book is that most of the kids in town went to Little League games to make fun of the kids who actually put uniforms on and played Little League. It was, we lined the fence and we mocked them for following orders and having umpires. But there was this particular moment in history when kids just ran free. You got kicked out the door, especially in the summertime, and weren't expected to come back until, sometimes I didn't get back until 9 at night, until it was after dark. The book is a series of adventures built around, it's not chronological, it's built around the various things that we did when we were kids and nobody was watching. Of course, it was a small town. And one of the things in a small town is that everybody's always watching.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I know that for a fact. My mom.
Parents of other kids watch the kids of other parents.
Yeah. It was much better than social media is today. I tell you, it was. I couldn't get by with anything.
One of my dad, who passed away a few years ago, but he was like a lot of people in town. He was kind of an informal town historian. You'd drive past a house, and he would tell you who lives there now, who they bought it from, who lived there 20 years ago, and who built it in the first place, and what they did. And there are, if a small town like Tomah or say Richland Center or all those towns in Indiana around you guys, there are people who know everybody else in town, and if not everybody else in town, at least everybody in the neighborhood, and what they're up to. And yeah, if you were a kid in those days, somebody knew what you were up to.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Of course, we had hiding places too. Yeah.
Yeah, we did too.
Oh,
yeah.
You're bringing back memories, Dave.
Absolutely.
So I'm not so fortunate after I ended up running into my mom coming in there.
Bill, what was your favorite hiding place?
I didn't have one. I mean, this woman knew every place I went. It was like, now they talk about, the police have cameras, the security cameras all over large cities now. My mom didn't even need that. She had eyes all over the town. So we tried to get away periodically to the Village Shopping Center to pick up a Red Hot after we got them playing ball. And as soon as I hit that door, I heard about it. How many times I told you not go to the Village Shopping Center unless I'm with you. And I'm geez.
Now,
it's just a hot dog. Come on, Mama.
My hiding place, Sarah Myers, who lived at the very edge of our subdivision, they had Katie Marsh Ditch on the other side of the little road. And her dad had put a really cool treehouse in the backyard. And then we had swings that went over the creek, and he put steps down and a little bridge. And we could go across that little bridge, and on the other side, which is now a huge subdivision, but at the time it was just fields. And we could actually get on that side, and there was nobody to spy on us and tell everybody where we were.
Yeah.
So thanks, Sarah Myers and your dad.
Well, this was Toma in the 50s, early 60s, and one of the as I said, the book is built around activities rather than chronological. So it's about wandering in the woods. It's about fishing. There's a chapter about going hunting with my dad. There's a chapter about recess sports like pom-pom poloe and two-line soccer. Nobody knows what two-line soccer is anymore. And there's a baseball chapter with a little tutorial on playing workup. You know what workup is?
No.
You see that's one of the things we've lost. Workup is a baseball game where you don't have enough kids. So you station, say you have 6 kids, all right? You have a batter with no catcher. You have a pitcher, and you might only have 2 batters. So you have 4 kids in the field. And maybe another kid comes along, you throw them in, you add the numbers, but you never have 9 kids on both sides.
Right.
And the kids who bat get to bat until they make an out. And then they have to go out in the field. And the pitcher becomes the batter. You work your way up to batting from the various positions on the field. It's quite simple. And you also, the various rules also apply. You play pitcher's hands are out. No, you can't have any imaginary men on base. Those imaginary men and pitcher's hands were 2 of the basic fundamental aspects of playing baseball when you were a kid in those days. Yeah.
It sounds very similar what we did. We just didn't have a name for it. But were you ever Ernie Banks when you got behind the plate?
Well, I was Henry Aaron.
Hank Aaron, yeah.
I was Ernie Banks. Well, yeah, but we always. That's the other thing those kids at the Little League couldn't do. Name themselves Billy Williams or that we took great pleasure in stealing the identity of several Major League Baseball players.
Yeah, well, my favorite Cub was actually Ron Santo.
Oh yeah, the best third baseman that ever lived.
Yeah.
And in fact, if it weren't for him, those triple plays that they did every week would not have ever happened. I tell you.
Yeah. One of the things that one of the points I made in my book is when I was 11, my mother decided to take this course on becoming a television presenter in La Crosse. and she had to stay in lacrosse for the whole month. And so she had to parcel us kids out to her other relatives. My brother and I got sent to Milwaukee for a month to live with my evil Uncle Merv and my Aunt Barbara. And then when the month was over, my dad drove up and picked us up, and he had to go to Chicago to pick up Peg, who had been left with my Aunt Norma. And while I was at my Aunt Norma's house, the TV was on. It was in the daytime, and the Cubs were on TV. And this was pretty astounding, because in those days, the only baseball you got to watch in Tomah, we had one channel for WKBT in La Crosse, and it was a CBS channel with a few other networks thrown in, because it was only one channel in the whole region. But baseball only happened on Saturday afternoon with Dizzy Dean and Pee Wee Reese broadcasting from always from Yankee Stadium. So all you ever got to see in Wisconsin, in Western Wisconsin anyway, was the Yankees. And every kid in town hated the Yankees because that was all you ever got. You wanted to see the Braves, just as you guys wanted to see the Cubs, but all we ever got was the damn Yankees.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness for the good old number 9 back in the day.
Right.
Because this
baby.
4 night games, and I mean, only at in the afternoon could you watch baseball,
or at least the Cubs, because they didn't have lights.
Yeah, that's right. Oh man.
Yeah, among the nicer things that happened after writing the book originally was that I wrote about how I never saw the Braves on TV, but I'd fall asleep at night listening to the Braves on the radio, or not fall asleep. And when they played out on the West Coast, I was lying in bed next to the radio until 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning to see how the game came out. But the voice of the Braves then was a great broadcaster, even better than Jack Brickhouse. His name was Earl Gillespie. And he did a lot of sportscasting around Wisconsin. I think probably a little bit in Illinois too. He was great, and he read the book, The Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked, and a friend of his read it, gave it to him. He read the book, and he sent me an autographed baseball.
Awesome.
Oh, how exciting!
Yeah, no, it was really nice. I still have it. It's in our apartment in Paris, where we can't go now. But that was really one of the treasures that I got from, and that's one of the things that makes writing books satisfying, when someone really connects with what you've written and responds in a meaningful way.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that is great. Because you have such a knack for building the color into that time that you're writing about. That is. I think is unique, more so than any other writer that I've read their work, and this I could just see just by you talking about it, how you built that into your story.
Yes.
So and that's pretty much the premises of The Last Kid Picked, isn't that? Like if you go back, you're playing a ball game and everyone's picking. You had 2 captains and they're picking sides, and next thing you know, okay, when am I going to be picked? Next thing you know. With me, sometimes they forgot me. Oh.
No, that's one of the important points in the book is that there are kids who'd never get picked. The last kid picked at least makes it. And when we had these games in Tomah, both of the Catholic school, St. Mary's, and the public school, the Miller School, sit on top of the only hill in town. Where at recess, in the wintertime, you got the Montreal Express or the Calgary Express blowing across that hill, with gale force, and it's like 10 below zero, and they didn't keep you in school then during when it was 10 below zero. They kicked you out for 15 minutes and you froze your buns off. But in the spring, we would have these. Each grade would have these games of the Catholics versus the publics, and it was always a question of whether I would be picked to play on the team because I was the last kid picked, and it required at least one kid with a paper route to not be able to play because he had a paper route, and it required maybe another kid to have have piano lessons or something like that, so he couldn't play in the game, and so I was the second or third kid off the bench, and if enough kids bailed out for some reason, then I got to play.
Yeah, bringing back memories.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, we always played on the Miller School sandlot, which was a mixture of sand and rocks and roots, because there were oak trees in center field. Really big old oak trees in center field with all these roots running through the outfield, and there was no grass out there at all. It was all just dirt, rocks, and sand. And so in baseball games among kids, the worst player always gets sent out to right field, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you played, Bill?
No, a lot of times infield. So.
But the worst field to play at the Miller School was the center field because of the trees and the roots and the rocks. So that's where they sent me.
You're being hungry.
Yeah, a lot of times we didn't have enough to have an outfield. I mean, it's just the infield, and you ran back. If you're in second base, you ran back, or you're second or third. It's and thing is that we were notorious for breaking someone's window as well. We had a beautiful lot that was big enough until someone hit a really good ball to left field, which was Mrs. Abrams' kitchen window. And once or twice that we broke that lot didn't get used anymore.
Oh, I have an incident in the book. One of the baseball chapters is about a field that we put together really on the edge of town, in a field that went uphill. We never had flat fields for some reason. Right next to the scariest woman in town. Her name in the book is Mrs. Moose. And I had a drive that was headed straight toward the bay window of her house. Now we were terrified of her. She was kind of the boogeyman in town. Yeah. She was our local version of Ed Gein. I don't know if you remember Ed Gein, Edward Gein, who dug people up in Plainfield, Wisconsin, and made sweaters out of people's skin and so forth.
Hannibal Lecter's friend.
He was actually the inspiration for Norman Bates, and also the inspiration for Hannibal Lecter. He was really one of the first He actually only killed one or two people. Mostly he was a necrophiliac who dug people up, but he did make a nice dress out of his mother. But anyway, I did a lot of research on Ed Gein, and I included a lot of Ed Gein material in that chapter.
I research him now.
Yeah. Did this guy run for political office afterwards, or no?
No, he ended up I think it was in a prison for the criminally insane. But the fear that parents instilled in kids in Wisconsin in the 50s was that Ed Gein had gotten out. He had escaped.
Yeah.
And if you don't get back in the house by 10 o'clock or whatever, Ed Gein's going to get you.
And you're going to be a jacket.
Yeah, he's going to be a dress or a jacket.
Yeah, he's going to make a lampshade out of your ass.
Yeah.
All I ever got told was I was going to be abducted by gypsies.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of those in Highland, Indiana.
Yeah. See, I still remember my grandpa chiming in after my mom would ream me out for not letting her know where I was going, and my grandpa, who knew what a kind child I was, would always chime in, "Who wants him?"
Yeah. Well, one of the things that one of the joys of that period was that parents were not the least bit interested in their kids' feelings. They didn't do a lot of negotiating and therapy. They just said, "Get the hell out of the house." And so kids were, thinking about having a baseball game, say the Catholics versus Publics, if a grown-up had shown up to stand by the fence and just watch us, eventually one of the bigger, tougher kids would have picked up one of the many rocks on the field and flung it at him. And the other kids would have joined in, because, any adult that got involved with kids' games was considered to be a pervert.
Yeah, that's.
And actually, it's turned out to be true, hasn't it?
Yes, parents were banned from our games, and that's one of the things that drove my mom up the. Once we went out the door, and we got banned from a lot of lots because of quite a few broken windows. So we ended up playing in a Meridian, this narrow, like 8 feet wide. We had the narrowest baseball field in ever. So, but it's a place to play. Yeah. But we couldn't hit windows. Maybe a car or two, but not windows.
Well, one of the what's interesting is that and that's part of the story too, how kids were able to adapt to the environment and circumstances in order to play the games. One of the things I mention in the book, but don't get heavily into it, is a game that I played in high school. My friend Scott Rothney, who's one of the people to whom I dedicated the book, had the nicest house up on Lakeview Avenue. His father was a professor at the University of Wisconsin, and me and about either 4 of us or 6 of us would gather after dark in front of Scott's house, because they had the only mercury vapor light in the whole neighborhood. And it's really bright. So we would play a game called two-hand touch pass ball underneath the mercury vapor light. And of course, both of the end zones were pretty much in the dark. But pass ball is a game in which you play, you got 2 to a side or 3 to a side. And the difference is that you can throw a pass beyond the line of scrimmage. So if you're the quarterback and the pass rusher can't get you, doesn't get 2 hands on you, you can run the ball past him, and then your receivers will work their way down the field, and you can treat it like a fast break in basketball.
Wow.
And it's just it takes a little adapting to, because you're so used to the line of scrimmage being forbidden for passers. But with pass ball, you can run up and down. You can, once you get past the pass rusher, you're basically breaking away. Not many plays worked out that way, because the pass rushers were very cautious about that. But and also we were working on a street, which was about 20 feet wide. So you had to be really, really nifty to get past the guy who's trying to get you. But it added an element to football, especially in those straitened circumstances. That was really, really fun. When my wife and I were living in California, we renewed pass ball with a number of her colleagues and friends, and our friends in California. And every New Year's Day, we had what we called the Twin Palms Bowl, because there were 2 palm trees in the backyard, and we played two-hand touch pass ball. It took about 3 years for people to figure out the game, but once they figured it out, we had just a great time playing pass ball up and down this backyard in San Carlos, California.
Oh man. Yeah, boy, this is
Those
bringing
are fun
back
traditions. Yeah.
Yeah, this is bringing, as I'm
So many
sure
memories,
this book
yes.
will bring back a ton of memories. It'll touch every bit of memory that people had in their childhood, and particularly
And hopefully inspire some of the millennials and things, Gen X and things, to do some of these.
Let your children go. Yeah.
Let them have fun.
And that's one thing you brought up that is a key point that I've always been critical of, this change, because back when I was a kid, you were right, exactly. Very few of us played Little League. And I did for 1 season. I found it boring because people were arguing and we'd have to stop. And it's like, oh man, you just didn't, like they do now on TV, where the batter gets up and he makes an adjustment, checks his cell phone, puts it away, and calls his agent and say, how much am I going to get next year? Before he gets behind the plate. And oh boy, if you took more than 3 or 4 seconds getting up to the plate, you just got chastised. So I mean, yeah, that, gosh. And thing is now, everything is so organized. Kids don't have time to do that stuff.
Right.
And, it's all organized. And I'm telling you, our group, I tell people this often, I swear one of the people wrote The Sandlot because we were that movie. We had one guy that made it up to the Mikey that I keep telling you about, that made it up to the big leagues. We did have one guy that I suspected, which became a writer. And so we all, it's just like, wow, which one of us wrote this? So
Yes, I think,
yeah.
I jokingly say all the time that the reason I don't get sick very often is because I've built up such a great immunity to germs and things, because we had, sandboxes in the backyard. Well, how many neighborhood cats and raccoons and things had peed and pooped in that thing? But we played in it, and we'd make mud pies and pretend to drink it, and we were outside. And I think we built up a good immunity where now all the kids are like, here. Oh, get the wipes and clean everything off.
Yeah, there's been extra. Oh, there she is.
Oh, there she is.
Hey.
Hi. How are you?
How you doing?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
All right.
So you're gonna have to edit this part out, right?
No way.
No way. So is this the coffee that you requested for?
This is the coffee. See,
Yes, he creates this opportunity for me
my initial one.
Oh boy! Now we're blessed with 2 famed writers.
I know.
Wow, man! Did we look 2 for 1 special
That's
day?
right.
Oh boy! We want to introduce. You want to introduce your wife for us, for those who
Yes. Wait, stick your head down here.
Yes.
This is Junko Yoshida. She is my wife, but she is also the editor-in-chief of EE Times, Electronic Engineering Times. She is the premier technology writer in the world.
Yeah.
Yes, she is. Oh man! Yeah. In fact, when we get beyond this pandemic, I'd love to do a collaboration with you guys on the Consumer Electronics Show. Maybe have you on after it or something.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
we would
that
love
would
to
be.
do that.
Oh man, oh boy.
I just the other day wrote a column for EE Times about how wonderful it is not to have to go to CES this year.
Yeah.
It might be a thrill for businessmen who go out there to go to strip shows and so forth, but for journalists at CES, it's just a grind. It's 5 days of constant pressure,
Yeah.
So. And I have to go there and help her out with this.
Thank
So
you.
I suffer as much as she does.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, it's gosh, I missed it so much. Last one I actually attended, to give you an idea how long that's been, was when it was in Chicago at McCormick.
Oh my God, that was actually used to be the
That's
premier
when they still had vacuum tubes, I believe.
Yeah, that's like a summer CES, they used to call it.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah.
bigger than Las Vegas. Yeah.
And then they couldn't afford it because of all the, what it cost to do a trade show at Chicago, and boom, that was
it.
This poses the opportunity for me to plug one of my books.
Yes.
Because I have a murder story. So I call it a noir comedy called Three is a Crowd, which begins at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Or it takes place half at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas and half in Paris. And it's among three guys who go to the show every year. They only see each other for 4 or 5 days every year, but year after year, they complain about how their boring lives and their boring wives, and so they decide to inveigle their wives to come to Paris, where each of them murders his wife, and then they get together at La Coupole, the famous literary restaurant on Boulevard Montparnasse, to relive the murders and compare notes.
So, David, does this reflect your angst for the consumer?
Where's the book, Benji? Do you have a book?
Yeah, should be a copy up here, isn't there?
Oh boy, this is great.
I love it.
Oh man.
Yeah, and what's the name of the book?
Three's a Crowd.
Three's a
Three's
Crowd.
a
Okay, I
Crowd.
gotta order that one because that's
You got two guys who've been talking about this just idly, and then this third guy joins the group belatedly, Chip. And Chip is a go-getter. He's a doer. So he's the one that motivates them from just complaining about their wives to actually doing something about them.
That's right.
Here's a copy.
There it is.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Dave is one of these guys that once he gets emotional about something, there's going to be a book.
Once you get that,
he gets upset over something, there's going to be a book.
I love it.
That's an interesting point, Bill, because one of the things about writing is that it's cathartic. You can get emotional about something and decide to write about it, but when you get down to the process, to the job, to the chore of actually putting it on paper, it cools you off and kind of purges all that emotion. And if you don't purge some of that emotion, if you don't channel it in a way that's readable for people, that's entertaining for people, it's bad writing.
Yeah.
But it kind of clears the carbon off of your pistons,
But it's the trigger, though. I mean, if you don't have the trigger, you wouldn't get started on it, right? Yeah.
David, I hate to say this, but we are going to be running out of time here pretty soon. I hate to say that because we so much enjoy.
We love having you guys on.
Yeah,
but thank you.
Yes, we do. Right. And boy, again, may I mention again the 2-for-1 special we have today. 2 amazing writers in one show. Wow.
All right.
And an amazing cook, from what I hear.
Yeah.
That's for another show.
Bill and Callie invited themselves to dinner.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, gosh, I will roll up my sleeves and do my best. Yeah.
I got a feeling if we go up there, about 6 months later, there will be a book
about us.
There you go.
That's my feelings, at least, anyway.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
We love you guys.
We're very honored.
Yes, always.
Yeah, Dave's one thing, but when you join the show, it just
even better.
It brightens the entire room.
Yes.
So
she's the personality in the family.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell everybody how they can get these books?
I was just going to suggest I do that. Yes. The easiest thing is go to my website, which is www.lastkidbooks.com. And there are purchase buttons that you can push. I've never actually done it myself, but I assume it works. And the title of the book, which won't be out until probably around the 1st of November, is The Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked. But I have other books there, including Three's a Crowd.
I was just going to say, there you go.
I guess that's it. Whatever I was going to say, I just forgot.
Well, we're excited.
Oh, man. Yes, we are. Boy, we can't tell you how much we appreciate this. And boy, I tell you, when do you run this? 2 famous authors in one show.
In one show.
Amazing. No, not really.
Very really.
Well, with that, we better start wrapping things up. And boy, it's a pleasure seeing both of you again. Yes. And with that, and again, the name of the book is Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked.
Okay, yes.
And you can get that at the Last Kid Picked.
www.lastkidbooks.com.
Last Kid Books.
Yes. And with that, we'll say
goodbye for now.
Goodbye for now.
Bye,
Goodbye.
everybody.
Happy trails to you.
Oh, man. That was great.
Yeah. Oh, I think This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Executive Suite Squared by ATG,
offering private and shared office space with 24/7 secured access, 3 state-of-the-art conference rooms, shared lounge and cafe area, receptionist, printing center, and fiber optic internet access with Wi-Fi throughout. Conveniently located just south of 8094 at the Kennedy Avenue exit at 2901 Carlson Drive in Hammond, Indiana. For information on how you can become a member, go to executivesuites2.com or call 219-844-2901. Executive Suites Squared, home to the Bill and Callie Show.